Generational wealth does not start with one person winning the lottery or someone earning a crazy salary. It starts with one generation taking a few simple steps to build a foundation for their children to become wealthy, and every generation passing that on to the next. My parents didn't necessarily do everything right when it comes to money and investing, but they were always very open with us about money. We always talked about what things cost, how to make money and manage it, and my dad was always open about things he would do differently if he could go back a few years. We always knew exactly how much money we had left in the budget to do something fun. And that one habit gave me a huge head start in how I think financially. So now I'm building on that foundation for my kids by just adding a few extra steps in. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 things you can do to set your child up for financial success. The generation wealth plan that can work at any income level. It's not about starting as big as possible, but rather starting as soon as possible and staying consistent. If you want to learn the basic principles of wealth building in just 5 days, I've got a free 5-day mini course that you can sign up for. Follow the link in my caption. Step number 1, and perhaps the most obvious. Open a tax-free savings account for your child and get that money invested. That means investing in stocks and not only earning interest. I've got a whole video dedicated to tax-free savings accounts. Have a look there if you don't understand it yet. Also, if you live in a different country, look at the tax-smart ways of investing for kids in your country. Let's look at some possibilities. If you invest 500 Rand a month in your child's TFSA, for the next 18 years. Let's assume the S&P 500 returns 16.5% in Rand, which has been the return since 1993, the average annual return of the S&P 500. Of course, there's no guarantee it will continue this performance in future, but that's just an assumption I'm making. I'm also assuming you increase your contributions every year with inflation, assuming that's 5.5%. By the time they turn 18, the TFSA's value would be 709,000 Rand, and you would still be well within their lifetime limit of 500,000 Rand. Because by then you would only have contributed at 176,000 Rand. So they can continue contributing to the TFSA. But let's assume they don't. Then that 709,000 Rand could grow to 94 million Rand by the time that they're 50 years old. It's really insane what compounding can do to your child's wealth. Yes, 94 million Rand in 50 years from now is definitely not going to be the same as 94 million Rand today. If we consider a 5.5% inflation, in real terms, it would be similar to 6.5 million Rand today. It's still really not a bad start to their retirement planning. And to think all of this money will be tax-free. Your responsibility here will be to educate your child on tax-free savings accounts and warn them that they shouldn't withdraw from it and that it should be a long-term investment, because once you withdraw from it, it's like a high-level watermark. You can't get that contribution availability back again once you've taken out of your TFSA. You can only put in 36,000 Rand a year and 500,000 Rand over your lifetime. And to make sure those investments grow tax-free for as long as possible, I would not use their TFSA to save for their education. For that, you would have to make a different provision, which brings me to step 2, building a separate education fund. I want you to save and invest ahead for your child's education, which I highly recommend you do in a separate account. Unless they are fewer than 5 years away from university, I would consider investing this money in the stock market, where I could get more growth in the long term. And that means rather investing the money than saving it. The typical cost of 4 years at university in South Africa is 768,000 Rand in 2025. If you want to send them abroad, 4 years at an American university on average costs $182,000. That's a massive number, but if you started investing in the S&P 500 when they were born, you would have only had to invest 540 Rand per month, increasing with inflation every year to reach 768,000 by this year. If you wanted to send them abroad this year, you would have had to invest 2,300 per month in the S&P 500 since they were born to have $182,000 today, or 3.1 million Rand. If your child is still young, inflation will obviously mean that their education will be much more by the time they go to university. You need to keep that in mind when you set your financial goals. Thinking ahead can save you a lot of stress and potentially ensure that your child doesn't need to take out student loans, which also is a step towards building generational wealth. Many of my investing course takers, like Shelly, who is 58 years old, tell me they wish they knew sooner about the basics of investing so that they could leave their children a legacy. It's never too late to start, but I want to encourage you to start as soon as possible to avoid regret. And again, you can sign up for my free 5-day mini course by following the link in the description. Step number 3, teach your kids about stock market basics please. Concepts like money management, compound growth, and opportunity cost, buying something instead of investing that money, is incredibly valuable for them to understand. Of course, your 3-year-old is not going to understand compounding, but talking to your children about money in an age-appropriate way, openly and honestly, can help them not to feel overwhelmed or anxious when it comes to money. Or perhaps just to know that they can ask questions and that they shouldn't be intimidated by money. Explaining how debt works, and that a lot of what we see does not mean wealth. It could mean money borrowed from the bank. It will put them so far ahead financially if they have an understanding of why things work the way they work and how you can use money in a way that is most beneficial. I credit a lot of my financial knowledge just to the fact that my parents spoke openly about money while I was growing up. Step number 4 is have a proper will and estate plan in place. This is one of the most overlooked parts of generational wealth building. I understand why. It's not necessarily a fun topic to think about. Having a proper will and insurance in place can prevent so much negative impact on your children in case something happens to you. A will and estate plan can ensure your assets are transferred to your kids in the most efficient way. Your kids' inheritance doesn't get managed by a firm that charges high fees or that's invested poorly, and your child will be assigned a guardian that you prefer. Also, if you have international assets, ensure that you have a will in place that complies with those countries' laws. Step number 5 might surprise you because it's not directly linked to your kids. As a parent, looking after your own retirement is one of the greatest gifts you can give your kids, because being reliant on them once you retire can prevent them from building wealth. They won't be able to invest as much if they are responsible for you financially. And it causes a vicious cycle, because if they're not properly prepared for retirement, they will have to rely on their children, and the cycle continues. Your job is not to make sure your kids never have to work. It's just to set them up so that they can have the best possible chance of building financial freedom for themselves. And a lot of this comes from education rather than handouts. I'm actually not about creating trust fund babies. What I am about is potentially having some money ready to just give your children a head start or a jump start at building financial freedom. But more importantly, to introduce some core concepts about money, about compounding, and about investing from an early age, because that is probably one of the most powerful things. And if you can get them interested at a young age, and potentially even to help them start investing at a young age, like Warren Buffett, who started investing at the age of 11, they could potentially be the next Warren Buffett. Wouldn't that be amazing? I hope this was a useful video to you, and I have a fan in my ear because it's extremely hot in this room today. So I'm not shooting a hair advertisement in case you were wondering. I hope you enjoyed this video. Looking forward to receiving your feedback in the comments. See you next time.